Welcome to One Life Mechanics, where today we are discussing Meditation 101. What is it? How do we do it? How do we get into it? And what are some of the things to look out for while meditating? Because surprisingly enough, there are some sort of disclaimers that you should be aware of and the effects that meditation could have that doesn't seem to be talked about much, except for perhaps in books. So the first thing that I want to discuss is what is meditation, right? So a lot of the time we throw this word around and think, okay, well, if I have no thoughts at all, that's meditation. Realistically, you might get to that space, but that's not the point of meditation. The point of meditation is to observe, to watch your thoughts float by like clouds, to allow emotions to wash through you. And when we are sitting in meditation, what we are doing is we are allowing ourselves to connect. The whole point of having a physical body is to connect with the stuff, the things, the material that's in your space. So our skin is meant to connect us with the world. It is not meant to separate us. It's meant to give us deeper access to touch, to connection, to a invisible line of energy. When we're sitting in meditation, what we're focusing on is our breath. It's a totem for accessing materia, right? And because we are wearing physical reality, the best way to get in touch with what's real and listening to the universe, letting those new thoughts enter your mind, your field, is to connect with material things, with touch. So the first aspect of meditation to focus on is your breath, and allowing that to guide you deeper and deeper into listening, which is listening to your thoughts, it's listening to your emotions, it's listening to inspiration, it's seeing colors. Typically that means that type of color that it's needed. So a lot of times when people have a favorite color, it's because that's the color that they need the most in their inner world in order to complete whatever it is that they are experiencing. And sometimes that can look like white light, sometimes it can look like purple is very common. It could be pink, it could be blue. All of these colors have different meanings. And you need to let those pass. Continue on through your meditation journey. The first thing that meditators usually encounter is the fact that they haven't been listening to themselves in quite some time. So sometimes all of those inner voices need a lot of airtime, a lot of talking goes on before that silence, that serenity can really take over. That's a process to get the nervous system out of survival mode and into something that is more evolved, or perhaps just a different level of experience. There's no better or worse, right? There's just different experiences. So meditation is not the absence of thought. Rather, it is listening to the thoughts that are there, feeling the emotions that are there. Usually that will be the first step, if you don't fall asleep first. The first thing that happens for new meditators when they sit down to meditate for that first 5 minutes is their body will try to make them go to sleep. Because you're not supposed to look behind the curtain. The subconscious says, I put a blocker on it. I put a wall up there on purpose. That's not something you want to really look at. But on the off chance that you do feel like falling asleep, meditators for centuries have had a secret weapon, which is tea, gong fu cha, or the traditional Chinese tea pour with caffeinated tea, is very much in line with meditators, right? So the reason for caffeinated Chinese tea is because the caffeine in tea helps a person to stay awake during those initial meditation sessions. And tea also has a bunch of different phenols in it, which help promote feelings of balance, friendship, basically returning the body to homeostasis. So if somebody's too amped up, it will actually bring them down in energy level and help them go to sleep and take a nap, which is what they really need. And if someone is actually too slow, they're lethargic, it'll bring their energy level up to something that's closer to homeostasis. So tea is always trying to find the middle ground of balance, right? So the most important thing to keep in mind for new meditators is that tendency to fall asleep. That's why we meditate sitting up. I know a lot of people that started meditation while lying down, just focusing on their breath because it's easier. A lot of times finding the motivation to set aside time to meditate is a lot. And so a lot of people start meditating by lying down. That's an option. If you can progress to sitting straight up with all of your chakras aligned, you've seen the poses, that's really what you want. And when I cross my legs, I usually like to put my hands on top of my knees, right, on either side, or face up is kind of more receiving, face down is more grounding, and most people need more grounding, right? So that helps, number one, with posture, so keeping your chest lifted, but it also kind of keeps you from like falling backwards. And then placing your hands upward can be, you're going to probably need a little bit more support that way, so your back is going to have to work a little bit harder. But getting a really good meditation cushion is imperative. Get a comfy one. Make sure that it's not too full, so that when you're, readjusting yourself, you can find something that's comfortable. So that's really step one, is find a comfortable seating. And it can be in a chair. It doesn't have to be, cross-legged sitting down. It can be in a chair. You want to keep your feet flat on the ground, knees in front of you, and then your hands on top of your knees. Or you can do the meditators. A lot of meditators will put this like right in front of their dantian, right? So that is another option. And some people, for those perhaps more sensitive, it's easier to focus energy through that portal, right? But it's not necessary. The poses are not necessary. What's important is the focus of the mind. So step one is going to be finding that upright position if you possibly can. Choosing a pose, and then focusing on your breath. And then the next part is do not move. Your body is going to try to determine whether or not you are asleep. The reason why meditation becomes so psychedelic is because ultimately the body does fall asleep. The body should be able to fall asleep within 15 minutes of closing the eyes and shutting down, or getting into that rest and digest state, right? So in order to stay conscious, awake, not asleep, body asleep, mind awake, that is the essence of meditation. In order to achieve that, your body is going to test you, and it is going to give you the worst itch in seemingly the most sensitive place it can find. And it's going to be the most irritating thing you've ever experienced for about a minute. And when this happens, guess what? You're meditating, right? So you feel the beginning of the itch. You notice it getting worse, unbearable. Continue observing, continue breathing. And your job is to continue observing. That's the essence of meditation. If you can get past the first 15 minutes of discomfort, the next 20 minutes are going to be considerably easier. I'm only suggesting that you start meditating for 5 minutes a day. But if you really want to clear, which is the point of meditation, is to have a clearing practice. It clears your aura, it clears your karma, it clears your thoughts, it clears ultimately your body, because it's allowing you to get into that rest, digest, restore state. And it's giving your system a chance to reset. So the body should feel rested, it should feel rejuvenated, the mind should feel clear, and the motions calmer after meditating. Hopefully that is what you're experiencing. In general, there's a lot of aspects of mental health that to some degree can be explained by the rewiring process, the healing process. Because in order to rewire, you have to take out all the wires, rewire those circuits. So in the process of doing that, healing can look like psychosis. And in fact, if one is meditating and psychosis begins to happen, it's actually recommended that you stop meditating, because the pathways are becoming too clear. So it brings all of these mental conundrums of spiritual awakening, meaning that most people have a certain amount of false programming or false thoughts that simply are not true. It's things we've been taught that are not true. They don't work in the real world. And we think that they do because that's what we've seen. Those are the patterns we've experienced, but they are unhealthy patterns. And in the process of meditating, we find all of those internal blockages. That whole kundalini rising, the caduceus, the asclepius of the spine. Those are energy channels in the body that get opened up when the mind is calm, when the nervous system is calm. Without grounding, the whole electrical system becomes chaotic. It has interfering wave patterns that cancel each other out. Because the nervous system is in this state of fight or flight, anxiety, survival mode, it cannot calm down to the point where organ function is optimized. There's too much cortisol in the system, etc. Meditation begins to take away that cortisol, that adrenaline in the system. But in the process of doing that, all of the other anxiety and different things that get stored in the body, tension, etc., start to come up and out, because whenever the system is calm, that's when defragging happens. That's when internal healing happens. So when your life is at its calmest, most peaceful, that is when you're probably going to have the most likelihood to absolutely lose it. This happens to all types of trauma victims. The nature of healing is chaos and then peace. There's external peace, perhaps, or maybe that you started meditating, you're creating a space of peace. But in that space of peace, then you need to be able to let it all out. That means full expression. That means throwing things on the ground, or, breaking branches, or finding an axe, or, taking a sledgehammer to a tire. That sort of thing. You have to physically move through your emotions. But the point is to feel them. The point of meditation is to sit, to feel, to experience. And if you cry, you cry. If your body shakes, let it shake. If your breathing becomes erratic, let it be erratic. Observe. Anytime someone has like a strange state and in the presence of monks, the monks just sit there and observe. Because healing is messy. It looks messy. So meditation 101 looks like, if you're having thoughts, let them happen. If you're feeling electrical surges in your body, let that happen. If your breathing gets erratic, let that happen. If you notice that your heart is skipping a few beats, let that happen. That happens often, because when the energy gets released through the system, sometimes makes the heart skip a beat. That's totally fine. Your heart is actually not meant to be a metronome. Contrary to popular thought, if you have a metronomic heartbeat, it's probably a synthetic heart. Okay? The human heart is meant to go faster and slower depending on your movement, on your emotions. It is not a static instrument. If you get a terrible itch somewhere on your body that just seems like the most inconvenient thing on the face of the planet, observe it. That is the essence of meditation. And when you are in the process of sitting and feeling, you will get, on the other side of that, is inspiration. What is inspiration? It's a non-repeating thought, a thought you've probably never thought of before. That's how you know you are getting into the clear zone, into that purpose zone. Watch some of my other videos on being cast by the universe for different roles in life, because ultimately that's what you're hearing, is the casting call. This is what's needed. This is what's needed. Will you step up and do those physical actions or say those words that need to be said? I would suggest using the app called InsiteTimer. It's free. It will give you an alarm every morning for meditation. You get to meditate. You get to see a map of all the other meditators that are meditating with you on the planet. It is the most widely used app for meditation, particularly beginners. And it has a lot of free meditations. You can also pay for the service and get some of the more famous speakers. So do consider that meditation is really just focusing on your breath, your body, the stillness. It is not trying to get rid of thought, but eventually no thoughts will happen and you will be bored. But that's an advanced meditation skill, not covered in this video. So for the beginning meditator, I encourage you to just sit down and do it. Lay down if you have to during those 5 minutes. Just notice your breath and breathe. And when you allow your brain to calm down, allowing all of the chaos from your life to surface, just observe. I know that some of those emotions and physical sensations can be very unpleasant, but I challenge you to observe. Because the essence of healing is feeling. Healing and feeling. Thank you so much for watching this video on meditation, and I'll see you next time on One Life Mechanics.